you just love Saul like I do, join us. We have a microphone for you. How's it going?
Is this working? It's working.
How's your day going?
I'm good. I just don't have a place for my coffee, but I'll put it over here. Hello. How are you all? You all right? Yeah, good. Good. You can tell the show's off the air now, can you?
I met you a few years ago here at MCM Comic-Con, and you told me, well, you didn't tell the story, you were just involved in the story. The Harry Gum story, which is not an appropriate story to tell here.
I don't even know what that story is.
Oh, well,
that must be an Eddie McClintock story.
It is an Eddie McClintock story.
Does it have to do with pubic hair?
It does.
Well, then I can't tell the story.
Yeah, no. But I was wondering if there were any stories that you can tell that you wanted to share with the audience that may be age appropriate for those who are sitting here. Feel free to say no.
Age-appropriate stories for people in yellow. Yeah, all right, we'll do that. Now, are you all, you guys know Warehouse 13, you're fans of Warehouse 13? Do you all know that it's ended, right? Yeah. Did you see the ending of this? Raise your hands if you saw the ending so I can tell. Well, we're going to have to tell you, I'm sorry, it did end. We had an amazing time. It's really hard to talk in this. You know, when you've got all this noise, you kind of feel like you better say very short, quick sentences.
But we want to hear long sentences. We want to hear all about your time on Warehouse 13.
Warehouse 13 was, I mean, I'm an old man. I've done a lot of things, but Warehouse 13 was a great character for me because Eddie McClintock and I, Eddie who played Pete, and I were the only dads on the show. No one else had children. And the reason we liked it was because it was a show that you could watch with your family. And normally that means it's usually kind of a dull show, or, you know, but actually it was a really fun show to do because it worked on a lot of levels, and I was proud of that. I was proud of the fact that you could be a granddad or a dad, and you could have an 8-year-old, and people would get something out of it at different levels, and that made me feel really good. And it's actually the reason that the show was successful. Do you know why the show was successful, actually, to begin with? You might find this interesting, given the fact that you're all nerds and geeks, which I am too. You're all 50,000 times more sophisticated as fans than the fans that used to be there. And the reason is because you interact with the shows that you're watching, and because the network executives and the people that create the shows listen to you in a way that they could never listen to you before. They actually read your comments, most of which actors should never read, or they would never bloody work again. I mean, can you believe the horrible things that people say to people? Horrible things they say in their anonymity in their rooms, right? Horrible things. But also there are very smart people who are genuine fans of a show who criticize, let me put it this way, in a very positive manner, with love and with good intentions, and not just to, you know, to blow off steam. And people listen to the shows. And right around 2008, the Sci-Fi Network in the United States, I don't know what it's called here. What is it called here? Sci-Fi.
They have a Sci-Fi Network here as well.
So in the United States, the Sci-Fi Network was owned by Universal, which also owns Universal Pictures, which also owns NBC, one of the largest television networks, and also owns a number of other networks, including Sci-Fi. And Sci-Fi, which was a science fiction network, they wanted to rebrand it. And the reason that they wanted to rebrand it, that means, you know, call it something else. What else are they doing that with? They're doing that with other networks in the United States, and they're going to do it here as well. And the reason is they're looking for a different audience. You know who they wanted? Who did they want? Not the women in this room. You know why I'm saying that? They wanted a woman audience that was, and they realized that women were not going to turn in to something called sci-fi. So I say the women not in this room because you all would tune into something called sci-fi. So they wanted a woman audience, and they wanted to change it from aliens in space. And if it was going to be called sci-fi, it wasn't going to happen. They quadrupled their woman audience by 400% by getting rid of aliens, getting rid of space, and changing the spelling of SCIFI to SYFY. Battlestar Galactica, which is one of my favorite shows ever, and Eddie James Olmos is here, you know, one of the great actors of my generation. I watched it all. I binge watched Battlestar Galactica because I knew I was about to be on the Sci-Fi Network. When my pilot got picked up, I wanted to know what was going on. I was locked away. I'm a dad and a husband. My son was in 8th grade. He was 12 years old. My daughter was 17 years old in 12th grade, and I disappeared for 5 days, and I binge watched the entire 5 years of Battlestar Galactica because it was so. Do you guys know it? Do you know Battlestar Galactica? Because it was so relevant, brilliantly written, and it was talking about our era in a brilliant way. It was making political comments about fascism, about political system. I loved it. We were doing the exact opposite of Battlestar Galactica, and we ended up with 3 times their numbers right away. The largest hit in that network's history. And the reason was women, children, families, and because we were a comedy show as well. And the other show that was on the air at the time was Eureka. I don't know if you guys... So Eureka also didn't have aliens in space and had humor in it. And I actually was on Eureka. And it's...
There was a crossover.
Well, there was a crossover when we did Warehouse, but I also, oddly enough, played a character called Arthur. And I talked to the showrunner, and I said, you know, you ought to bring me back. It was before Warehouse 13 was ever on the air. And my character, talk about a coincidence, my character on Eureka was looking for an artifact. I mean, go figure. And disappears, literally, into the artifact. And I said, you should have made that Artie. Actually make that Artie. And if the shows would have continued and they wouldn't have bloody well canceled them, then I would have ended up back on Eureka. But the reason that the show was, you know, it was kind of interesting since I was such a fan of Battlestar Galactica. When they canceled us and they canceled Eureka, they went back to traditional sci-fi, which means, you know, death by microbes, no humor, can't bring your kids to watch it. People are going to be dying gruesome and horrible deaths while having sex on the show, right? Seriously, right? I mean, this is kind of the new paradigm. They've got to be having sex. There's got to be blood. They've got to all be quadrisexual, men, women, objects, you know, IT characters, whatever, that they've got to be sexually interested in. And they've all got to die while they do it. And they've got to look grotesque while that's happening. And then you might attract an audience. Whereas our idea, which is far more old-fashioned, was tell a great story, have some laughs, and bring the children. Which, you know, I like both, frankly. You know, I played a quadrisexual once, by the way. I did. I played a quadrisexual. Somebody told me that it wasn't a quadrisexual. They said I was actually a quintessexual. That is 5 different types I was interested in. I did a character on Star Trek The Next Generation, which was called Kivas Fajo, who is a collector. And I kidnapped Data. And I had the Mona Lisa. I had playing cards that still had the bubblegum smell on them. And I kidnapped Data because he was unique. This is in 1989. It was season 2. Brent Spiner, who plays Data, is a very good friend of mine. We had done theater together in New York 10 years before that. And Brent Spiner, if you watch Warehouse, you know he's the whole first half of the season 4 of Warehouse 13. He plays with me. The two of us together have nothing but a two-hander. Because of my friendship with him, and also because I had done that particular episode. It's an iconic episode. You know, it's weird. Imagine this. That was 1989. 1996, my son, my daughter, who was at that point, no, that was 96. It was the year 2000. So it's 15 years ago. And my daughter's 9 years old at the time, says, "You realize, Dad, you're a trading card on the internet." And I said, "I'm a what?" "You're on the internet as a trading card." I said, "What?" So I went on the internet and I found out that my character, Kivas Fajo, was the main card in a game that was being played worldwide. That was a game about, it was a kind of sick game about people collecting weird things. And if you ended up with the Kivas Fajo card, I don't know what happened to you, got kidnapped and into the slave trade. I don't know what happened to you. But anyway, it was a very weird thing to discover. These things, I didn't know they existed. I swear to you. The very first season of Warehouse 13, we all got flown to San Diego, to Comic-Con, all of us. I had no effing idea that this existed. And I'm somebody who had done Ray Bradbury Theater, 2 episodes of the Outer Limits show. I had done a double episode of Stargate. I had done an iconic episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I had a sci-fi career. I really didn't think about it, but I did. And when I arrived in San Diego, which was 10 times this, right? 10 times this size. And this is huge and sold out. And I didn't know that there was such a thing as Comic-Con. I couldn't cross the room. And I'm just a working actor. I ain't no movie star. I'm just a working actor who makes a living. And because I was in a group of people like you, who all had seen Outer Limits, Star Trek: The Next Generation, all of that stuff, I suddenly found my people. Here they were. And I became a fan, and I wanted to go to Comic-Con, and I ended up going to Atlanta, Chicago, London last year. I want to go to Dublin next year. There's one in Birmingham about to happen, right? I know there's one in Australia that's kind of interesting. So the truth is, you guys know this, that there is a sci-fi convention every single weekend somewhere on Earth? Do you know this? I guess you know it better than I do.
But
You know
we're
it
so
better than I do.
lucky that we had you here.
Oh, well, you're not that lucky.
I feel incredibly lucky.
Oh, no.
Thank you so much for
Stop.
joining us.
In other words, shut up. We've talked enough.
No, we've unfortunately run out of time. You have to go sign
I
and
have to
take
go.
pictures.
Anyway, thank you for being here.
Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you, Saul.
Yeah.
Of course, the MCM Buzz Live Stage is live all weekend right here at Comic-Con. I'm your host, Yael Teagle. We are here live. We will be here all weekend. And don't forget to go check out Saul, where he's signing. Get your photos.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Yeah,
Thanks,
because I've
guys.
still got a kid in college. It's very expensive.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Bye-bye.